But now let's get back to your exploration of this question. So I would first of all like you to describe your own thinking about your thinking, your approach.
Thinking about my thinking.
Yes. How would you describe your own approach to this question, and what was good about it, maybe bad about it, what was effective, ineffective?
One thing that I did, I did take a albeit rudimentary, but I took a systematic approach to, what are the circumstances, and understanding, in simple ways, how can I start to learn more about each individual, or learn about these blocks.
Okay, and by the way, let me just say something that I thought was really an excellent start that you did, which was you just tried something.
Yeah.
You said, okay, I need to put the same blocks on each side, and you discussed in your own mind, and you said it out loud so that we could hear, which was that, well, if you put the different number of blocks on one side from the other, that would go down and you wouldn't learn anything. So you knew you had to put the same number of blocks on both sides. So that was your first insight. And then you did something which was very important, very valuable, and is sometimes the most essential feature of solving any challenge, which is to try something. You'd be surprised how many people, when I'll give them a question, and it doesn't have to be a mathematical question, just a general question, and instead of trying something, they just don't try anything, because they'll say, oh, I don't know how to do it, and therefore don't try anything. And that is essentially never successful. You have to try things, and then you make a mistake, and you learn from the mistake, so that it's a step in the direction of getting to a solution, is to make a mistake and then analyze it. So now what did you do?
At one point, eventually I said, well, why have I only been doing this with two groups of four and then one?
Yeah.
At some point, kind of in the middle of working through this, I said, well, I could do 3 and 3. But and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, well, why 3 and 3? That means you have 3 more blocks that you know nothing about, pretty much, or you have a number of unknowns. At least that's what went through my head.
Right.
And then.
So what happened there when you were thinking about that?
Well, so what I was thinking about, I was like, well, if one weighs more than the other, on this scale, if one weighs more than the other, now I have the problem of 3 blocks that, I don't know any, I know that one of them is the Ramanujan, and I didn't follow through with the entire thought process.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So the point is that, and so what happened is you worked with the 4 against 4 for a long time, and then you said, well, we could start 3 against 3, and then you dismissed that.
Yeah.
And what you did not do is to actually systematically attempt that. You had a general idea that it wouldn't work, and you dismissed it and went back because you were wedded to the 4 against 4 first attempt, and so you wanted to spend more time on that.
Yeah, and then I did
systematic, and then you went through and spent much more time on the 4 against 4. So one thing that as I was observing this, is that I noticed that the 3 against 3 occurred to you, but you did not become systematic in its exploration. You didn't say, okay, if I actually do it 3 against 3, then what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You didn't do that at that point.
Yeah.
You did it later,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah, and the reason that I kind of dismissed it was I still wasn't 100% sure about the 4 versus 4. Like doing the 4v4.
That it would not work.
That it would not work. I wasn't completely convinced about that. And so that's when I went into this decision tree thing and what happens under this circumstance. And eventually I did get to the point where I was like, well, I will not get any further. It's, unless I have another opportunity to weigh these things, there's no, I won't find the correct result. Unless I'm lucky, which you can't really rely on luck.
No.
This is the Ramanujan.
Exactly.
And then once I was convinced completely that the 4 versus 4 with 1 wasn't going to work, the only other option was to do 3, 3, and 3.